like the potential for like these seismic events and cataclysmic events that have reset civilization. It makes you recognize that all of our reference points, other than biological and cosmological, are cultural reference points and therefore temporal. And so a person living in a tent in the street is in a sense living a hunter-gatherer lifestyle in contemporary America, or living a post-apocalyptic lifestyle in contemporary America. It makes me think sometimes, Joe, maybe the apocalypse is not a forthcoming event. Maybe the apocalypse has already happened. Maybe we're living in the sort of already its gentle threads are encroaching upon apparent civilization. You know, when you're in comfortable, defined and designed spaces, you feel like everything's okay. The end of the world is impossible. And it just seems like entertainment when you hear about nuclear treaties being torn up, that it can't actually happen. But of course it can. It's so temporal.
It's happened forever. It's always happened. The people that it happened to then, they never saw it coming either. The way you're saying is very interesting, because I think the apocalypse is here on Earth. It's just not here, like right here in Austin. It's not like right here in the studio, but it's in the Congo.
Yeah.
Like if you go to a cobalt mine in the Congo and you see a 19-year-old woman with a baby on her back mining for cobalt and inhaling toxic fumes, you're like, okay, well that's the apocalypse. They have no electricity, they have no clean water, they make very, very little money, and they work all day, and they work for a company that puts cobalt into lithium-ion batteries that are in everyone's smartphone. So the height of our technology is directly connected to what's essentially slave labor. And that's the apocalypse. I mean, that might as well be the apocalypse. That might as well be Mad Max. It might as well be. I mean, it's just as bad. It's just as horrific.
There's a very beautiful bit of investigation. I saw that episode.
Siddharth Kara, yeah. He wrote that. What is the book called? Cobalt Red. Yeah, it's all about cobalt mining in the Congo and his investigation that he did into it. It's very, very. It's inspiring that a person is that selfless and can make that sort of a commitment and risk their life and go to a very dangerous place and expose this, because he's a real journalist, like a real boots on the ground journalist that wants to show the world some things that are being hidden from them, because the people that are making enormous amounts of money from this that could fix it don't want to. They want to profit off of it at the exact level they're profiting off of it now, which means, paying people a couple cents an hour or whatever they pay them. It's horrific.
Yes, and it's a template that is unfortunately imprinted and repeated across cultural life.
Yeah.
That, as you say, there are people right now living in the apocalypse.
Yeah, they are.
That can't get any worse or lower. And then even if you imagine, well, what would justify that? It could only be if we were all on ventilators that were sustaining life in the West. Even then it would be morally dubious. But the idea that it is for some trinket in terms of our phone that's ultimately a facilitator of ongoing commerce and communication at a level that's not sustainable. And I feel like, that when we talk about what are the ideologies that drive us, the ideology of progress, this is why I have sometimes am skeptical, not about technology, the mastery and the geniuses that work in that field, but how technology and science as a subset of our economic ideology can create exactly the conditions that you're describing and that journalist has exposed. That if your ideology permits that, then what kind of ideology is that? What kind of unconsciousness are we living in? It's not an awakened culture, and all of the discourse around how we treat one another as individuals and progressivism culturally in domestic territories, hey, people should be allowed to do this and that, it's a nonsense. If
Right.
that is permitted, not only permitted, required. It's a requirement. You cannot have that economic model without that price being paid. And as a culture, whether it's me as an individual or our entire culture, we've accepted that contract. We've accepted its terms.
Well, we have in some areas of our life for sure. Hopefully people haven't done that in their interpersonal, intimate relationships, but we certainly have in the way we communicate with others. We've certainly accepted very bizarre ways of communicating online, and sometimes that bleeds out into real life, like where someone talks to people in the real world as if they're on Twitter and they get bashed.
Yeah.
You see that sometimes. I think it's a very strange time where I don't think people have a lot of faith right now in institutions, and I don't think they have a lot of faith in authority. I don't think they really believe that there is someone who is wiser than them